Okay, I'd like to call the regular meeting to order. Rachel, if you would go with the roll call, please.
Here.
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 Here. Here. Here.
Here. I'd like to salute the flag now, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The notice requirements of the Open Public Meeting Law for this meeting have been satisfied. A copy of the notice having been sent to the Asbury Park Press and the Coaster and filed in the office of the Township Clerk on July 25, 2017. There is an emergency exit through the courtroom doors and the two exits at the rear of the room. We have a no smoking policy in this room, and no new cases will be started after 10:30 p.m. and no new testimony taken after 11 p.m. In addition, the applicant will be limited to 1 hour of testimony. All meetings will be video and audio taped and shown on the Township of Ocean's Community Cable Channel, Channel 22 on Verizon Fios, and Channel 77 on Cablevision. All cell phones must be turned off, or if you need to make a call, please make your call outside the meeting room. Now I'd like to ask Mr. Brown to swear in the professional.
Well, Mary Ann, you've been doing this many years, so you can read it yourself. Would you raise your right hand?
I, Mary Ann Walensky, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and to the governments established in the state under the authority of the people, and that all testimony that I shall provide during all hearings throughout my term shall be under oath and therefore will be under legal obligation to speak the truth at all times. I do further solemnly swear that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all the duties of the Township of Ocean Planning Board Administrator according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
For not too long.
Correct.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations, may be here for many more years.
So you're not retired? Are you back for a 3-year term?
He just tricked
Do
you.
over.
That's what I was like.
He just tricked you.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, we didn't tell you that.
Okay, I now would like to take this opportunity to announce to all present that our Director of Community Development and Planning Director, Mary Ann Walensky, will be retiring shortly after 30 years of service to the Ocean Township community. Mary Ann is attending her last planning board meeting this evening. I would like to take this opportunity on behalf of all planning board members, the professional staff, and myself to personally thank Mary Ann for her tireless efforts, knowledgeable guidance, and personable manner in facilitating the work of this board towards what I believed serve the best interests of our community while always keeping the rights of the applicants in mind. Again, I'd like to thank her for her bringing a greater understanding of this process to both the board and myself, and I want her to know that she will be sorely missed.
Thank you, Chair.
Back to the matter at hand, the first case that's carried to September 25th, 2017 is J&M Abeen, LLC, Block 1.02, lots 52.01, 53.01, 54.01, 17 Cindy Lane in Ocean, New Jersey. And next we have some resolution memorializations, the first one being Foring Dental Holdings, LLC, Block 25.21, Lot 5, 166 Monmouth Road, Oakhurst. Preliminary and final site plan approval. Can I hear somebody?
I'll offer.
You'll offer? And a second?
I'll second.
Pete?
Mr. Sheriff?
Yes.
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 No?
Yes.
Yes. Next, I would offer for approval, or not offer for approval, but the resolution of Abraham Ades, formerly Gisela Collier, Block 9, lots 2.01, 4.01, 6.11, 7.11, Larchwood Avenue, Oakhurst, an amended minor subdivision approval. Would someone like to offer?
I'll offer it.
Second, please.
I'll second.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Can you share with us, because I think at the end of the last meeting, I'm not sure that we had a resolution, what was the final approval? Am I mistaken?
Pardon?
Am I mistaken? Because I don't know that we came up with I know what Jen said she'd like to have. I don't know if that was what was finalized.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was passed. Ms. Krimko was here. It was a rather quick application, actually, but it was voted on. And as an aside, the resolution memorialization was prepared. It's been sent over to Ms. Krimko and didn't hear back. I assume she was fine with the language.
Got it. Okay.
Yep.
Didn't mean to scare you.
We need a second on this, please.
I'll second that.
I'll second it.
Mr. Good,
Yes.
Ms. Close,
Yes.
and Chairman Burley.
Yes. Okay, it's approved.
Estelle,
Good. So,
can you put your microphone down? Just so you'll get picked up. I don't want them to. Yeah, but the audience, the masses that watch it on TV are looking forward to hearing from you.
What is Marianne gonna see next time when she goes home and looks at the video? Not this.
All set. Next, we have the minutes for approval. June 29th, 2017, special meeting.
I'll offer it.
Second, please.
I'll second it.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Duffy,
Yes.
Mr. Good,
Yes.
Close,
Yes.
Yes.
Anna,
Yes.
and Chairman Burley.
Yes. And finally, we have the minutes for approval from July 24th, 2017, regular meeting.
I'll offer it.
Second.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Mr. Good,
Yes.
Ms. Close,
Yes.
Mr. Reedy,
Yes.
Anna,
Yes.
Frankie,
Yes.
and Chairman Burley.
Yes. Okay, the first case of this evening, it's listed as a capital review. It's the Township of Ocean Sewage Authority, Block 38, lot number 89, Asbury Avenue, Block 37.16, Lot 2, Green Grove Road. This is a review of a pump station renovations. Mr. Bonello, please.
John Bonello, representing the Sewage Authority. This is the upgrade of two existing pump stations, one on Green Grove Road in Ascot and the other one on Asbury Avenue. It's basically designed to provide more safety to the employees, get rid of confined space, and resolve any water issues that could possibly occur. 90% of the work is going to be the electrical and mechanical areas of it. I have with us Dennis Galvin and Bill Schmeling. I think first Mr. Schmeling, who is the...
Mr. Bonello, you had given me a call about 5 o'clock in response to Mr. Higgins' report. And as you discussed with me, you disagreed with Mr. Higgins' conclusion that this application required a site plan rather than a capital review. So before the board has the ability to consider this, there's going to have to be a determination as to whether or not to concur with Mr. Higgins' report, which means that you'd have to file a site plan application, or if they want to agree with what you advised about 5 o'clock tonight, which is that your feeling is that based on case law and statutory interpretation, Mr. Higgins is incorrect, and this only involves a capital review. Is that at least fair to say in terms of the discussion we had? You gave me some
Yeah, I
new
was
cases.
hoping that because it's listed, that you've already looked at it and you made your recommendation.
No, you know very well that when you called me at 5,
A little bit before that, because I was in court and I
or
received
you
it
called me at
before.
4:45. Fine, whatever the difference.
What is your recommendation?
Mr. Brown, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we have a packet, so maybe if we entered Mr. Higgins' report, we'd all be up to speed about what we're referring to.
Yep, that's
So
fine.
maybe Marion could mark the packet B1 with tonight's date and start with
The
Mr. Higgins'
packet
report.
has two things, and one I want to correct. It has Mr. Bonello's letter to me. On the cover, it says it's 8/14, it's 8/4. And then the only other item is Jim's report, which is August the 11th. So I'm going to mark that packet as B1 with today's date.
So would you like to have Mr. Higgins talk about the jurisdictional issue only?
I think that would be appropriate, yes.
Want me to read the report into the record?
You could do that.
Okay. The applicant has submitted plans to the board for reconstruction of 2 pump stations and the repair replacement of sewer lines on Berkeley Avenue, Lakeview Avenue, and Lincoln Drive in Colonial Terrace. The letter of submittal states that the projects will be presented to the board as capital improvement projects rather than site plans. The board should be aware that this is a significant deviation from past practices of the township and the board. In the past, such applications have always been reviewed as site plans. First, to my knowledge of my tenure as township planner, the board has never reviewed any TOSA project as a capital review project, whether it be a sewer line repair or and replacement, pump station improvements, or improvements to the TOSA plant. Sewer line repair and replacement have never been reviewed by the board in any capacity to my knowledge. Pump station improvements, if they meet the definition of site plan in the ordinance, have always been heard as site plan applications. TOSA plan improvements have also been the subject of site plan approval by the board. The ordinance contemplates board action on such matters in several ways. First, public facilities and services are conditionally permitted uses that require board review and approval to determine if they meet the conditional use requirements of the ordinance. Second, the ordinance has a specific requirement for submission of a site plan. That requirement is provided below, as well as the ordinance definition of development and the MLUL definition of application for development. Site plan required that section 2154.1, it is required that a site plan be submitted to the administrative officer under the procedures portion of the development ordinance for every application for development, including a change of use from single-family residential to any other use, except for subdivision or the development of a single-family residential structure. A site plan will also not be required for the addition, deletion, or relocation of doors and windows, or the construction or reconstruction of the roof line of an entire building for non-residential uses, or the erection of canopies pursuant to section 21-53.6, if, in the opinion of the planning administrator and construction code official, the proposed changes will not be detrimental to the health, safety, and general welfare. Site plans may be submitted separately as a preliminary site plan and final site plan, or may be submitted as a combined preliminary and final site plan. Development shall mean the division of a parcel of land into 2 or more parcels, the construction, reconstruction, conversion, alteration, relocation, or enlargement of any building or other structure, or of any mining, excavation, or landfill, or any use or change in the use of any building or structure, or land or extension of use of land, or amendment thereto adopted and filed pursuant to this act. An application for development means the application form and all accompanying documents required by ordinance for approval of a subdivision plat, site plan, plan development, conditional use, zoning variance, or direction of the issuance of a permit pursuant to section 25 or section 27 of the Public Law 1975 C-291, which is section 55D34 and 55D36 of the Municipal Land Use Law. With regard to capital projects, the Municipal Land Use Law states that whenever the planning board shall have adopted any portion of a master plan, the governing body or other public agency having jurisdiction over the subject matter, before taking action necessitating the expenditure of any public funds incidental to the location, character, or extent of such project shall refer the action involving such specific project to the planning board for review and recommendation in conjunction with such master plan, and shall not act thereon without such recommendation or until 45 days have elapsed after such reference without receiving such recommendation. This requirement shall apply to action by a housing, parking, highway, special district, or other authority, redevelopment agency, school board, or other similar public agency, state, county, or municipal. Clearly, the proposed modifications to the pump stations meet the definition of development and would require a site plan under the township's ordinance. In addition, the developments also include fences that exceed the ordinance height requirement, which would require a variance under any circumstance. While the MLUL requirement would require board review of capital projects, it does not appear to preclude the possibility of requiring site plan approval or variance approval where such is a requirement of the ordinance. It should be noted that there is no exception in the ordinance that would exempt a public utility from being required to seek site plan approval, particularly when there is a non-conforming aspect of the plan. And one point I do want to make, I don't believe that municipal land use law would not require, what's the word I'm looking for? The MLUL would preclude the township from reviewing site plan, requiring site plan review. I don't think it's necessary to do both capital improvement and a site plan. A site plan can cover both.
Okay.
Mr. Bennell, you had indicated in your phone call that you disagreed with that, and I would feel that if you want to make an argument against that, you told me about some case law that you were going to rely on tonight, so I would think this would be the opportunity for you to discuss that.
Briefly, I think if you,
Mr. Pinello?
You have to,
The microphones not only are for recording and audio purposes, but we do have a TV show that's made from it, so if you can talk into the microphone. I'll only see the back of your head. Only the back of your head.
that's bad. Should I sit down?
Yeah, it just comes out better.
Briefly, the Sewerage Authority is a public entity created by statute. And the statute requires, and I think if you understand what the Sewerage Authority does, you realize that for them to get a variance or to get a zoning change or something like that for a sewer plant or a pumping station or something like that would be almost impossible under general circumstances. It's a use that would not be favored by neighbors or anything else. So what the statute did, and I'll refer to NJSA 4014A-6, and it says that every sewerage authority is hereby authorized and directed, subject to the limitation of this act, to acquire in its own name but for the local unit or units by purchase, gift, condemnation, or otherwise, and notwithstanding the provisions of any charter, ordinance, or resolution of any county or municipality to the contrary, to construct, maintain, operate such trunk, intercepting and outlet sewers, conduits, pipelines, pumping and ventilation stations, etc. It goes on to tell that. The statute further provides that its authority shall be interpreted liberally so that the authority can go forward. There are cases that indicate that where a project such as this has been approved through rigorous review by another government agency, in this case, the NJDEP has reviewed it, approved the design, approved everything for it. That would not be subject to any review by a local entity because it's been preempted. The question of site plan, keeping in mind here that these two pump stations have existed for 50 years. The one on the Green Grove Road was apparently built by the contractor who did the subdivision and taken over by the authority. The amount of change that they have is really de minimis when you look at it. And to have to come before the board for a variance, which obviously is not required. We don't require any variance or zoning approvals. If we did that, it would be out of business. But for a site plan approval, the site work and everything else has been approved by the NJDEP. The one area that I think a legitimate argument can be made for cooperation with the planning board and for input from the planning board is aesthetics. It doesn't impact roads, it doesn't impact traffic, it doesn't impact anything other than the aesthetics of it. As they stand right now, one of which is the one on Asbury Avenue, you can't see, it's in the woods almost. The one on Green Grove Road is in fact something that's quite visible and is sort of raw, sitting there with a chain link fence, as it has been for 50 years or 40 years. The work that's going to be done there, 95% is going to be the relocation of the mechanical and the electrical system to get it out of the ground so that it won't be a confined space issue for the workers. It's a safety issue, and it's also an issue that if water gets in there, the electrical systems would be destroyed. So they propose on moving it up, enlarging the one little building that's there slightly, and that's it. I mean, he mentioned that the fence is going to be 2 feet higher. We don't care how high the fence is. If it's 6 foot, you want 6 foot, we'll do 6 foot. We don't care. What I suggest to you is to look at it from the point of view of aesthetics, and I can represent to you that the board has instructed both Bill Schmeling and Dennis to cooperate with you and provide any reasonable requests that you have for landscaping, shielding, putting in slats, or anything that would improve the aesthetics of the building. But there's really nothing else as site plan would be applicable, because it's already approved by the state. It's already been bid. A contract has been issued to a contractor for both of these. It's about a $500,000 project. It's being delayed now because we do need a building permit, but I don't think we need any site plan approval, especially for something like this. I mean, even if it was something that you required site plan for, you would treat this as a minor site plan and just quickly do away with it. But I'm saying to you that the easy way to handle this is to treat it as a capital review. The board will cooperate and favorably take in any recommendations you have to improve the aesthetics of the new buildings. They're all concerning the interrelationship of the site plan statute and the statutes that give power to the sewerage authority has been interpreted, recently, saying that where you have DEP regulation and approval, it preempts most of the work that you want to do. I think it says all of it, but like I said, under capital review, it's a perfect example and an ability for you to put some input in here. The one thing that you should have concern about, and that is the aesthetics. You don't have concern about any of the mechanics or the zoning itself. They're exempt. It's been there for 50 years, but even if they're putting a new one there, you wouldn't have jurisdiction over the zoning approval for conditional use or whatever you want to call it. It would be exempt from it. So that's my suggestion. I gave the recent case to Sandy, right before 5, but when I got back from court, I got Mr. Higgins' report, and I did some work. What I'm saying is use common sense to get this project going. It's not going to accomplish anything except expand the cost to the authority, delay the project, and probably possibly interfere with his contract rights with his contractor, who has a contract and wants to go.
So I'm new at, can I ask some questions? I'm new at this. So you traditionally enter into a contract before you have a capital review?
Sure. In this case, to be honest with you, I don't think anybody thought that they had a site plan or any other issue. This is a small square, maybe 20 by 20 on an existing property, and they're spending the money to get rid of the problems with the electrical and the mechanical that are underground. They're raising it up so that it won't get subject to water. It isn't really an issue that they thought was important to anybody. They did know.
Whether
that
they
had-
thought it was important or not, my question is, so you can enter into a contract without coming to the planning board for capital review?
Sure.
Okay, again, I'm new at this, so that's fine.
What I'm saying to you, though, is that the project really should go forward, and think about what review you would do if this was a site plan. What would you do?
Okay, so now back to the capital review. So traditionally, so you were prepared, the board was prepared to provide your representatives today with the guidance to accept from a aesthetics point of view. Is that traditionally included in the capital review? Is that what we would normally do? I mean, why did the board prepare for that?
Well, because
In advance.
capital review is something that is consistent with the idea of being cooperative with the neighbors. This is not an adversarial situation. The Sewerage Authority is part of the town. It was created by the town. It works to bring water pollution and everything else under control and provides it. It's independent, but it realizes its relationship with the town is very important. And something like this, it's only fair and it's only reasonable to come before you and say, we're doing this, and this is an opportunity to take a 50-year-old building and maybe bring it up and make it more aesthetically pleasing, because it's in a nice residential area. I mean, we could do nothing and leave it there. There's nothing anybody could do, but they've taken this project in order to modernize it and to resolve a safety issue with confined space.
Okay, last question. So you say you were delayed now, so the original permit was denied when?
April, May.
And why are we here in August? I mean, why wasn't there any communication between May and
I
today?
thought there would be communication, and we tried to communicate, but there's been changes.
With whom?
With the town, and there's been.
With whom specifically?
I don't know. The executive director is here, the chairman of the authority is here.
So they communicated with somebody
They were
in
going
town?
to, and they were hoping that this would not be necessary, that they could be resolved informally, and we would just go ahead.
How?
That did not work out. There was
Who did
no-
they speak to try to make it work out?
I don't know if they spoke to anybody.
So they didn't try. I'm just trying to understand.
Well, they didn't try, in the
Okay.
sense they didn't physically talk to someone.
Okay,
But they were intending to do so, and for one reason or another, they couldn't do it.
until now.
Until we realized that we had to get going. And we realized that this was,
So now it's our fault that it's delayed.
not at all, no
Okay.
one said that. Who said that?
Well, you said we're in jeopardy, and
I'm not saying it's your fault,
you implied that.
Well, I implied that we needed a permit, a construction.
That was denied.
permit.
When was it denied?
April, May,
Okay, so now it's August.
right.
Okay. Just want to make sure the record's straight.
Oh, there's
There was no
question.
communication between the authority and the township from May until when?
A month ago,
A month ago? So,
approximately.
okay. So it sat for 3 months.
It did.
Okay. I'm done.
Correct me if I'm wrong, in order to get a building permit, you need to have a site plan. Is that correct?
No.
Yeah, I just was discussing comments by council with Ms. Walensky, and apparently there was an application in April or May, and it was rejected specifically on the grounds that the site plan approval was required. So,
Yeah, that's true, and the issue really is what happened between then and coming here now. And we were hoping that we could resolve it without this, because it seems to be so minor as far as the site plan issues are concerned.
You know, my 2 cents in the situation is that you want to use, you keep on saying it's minor, your beautification of the property or whatever you're going to do. Why not present that? Why aren't you presenting what you're doing, how you're making this beautiful
That's
little
what
20 by 20
I started to
area?
do that, and I was
I can
stopped.
address that, and maybe, Mr. Chairman, it might
No.
be appropriate now for me to add my understanding, and based on Mr. Bonello's good faith comments that, you know, he got in touch with me when he did, and I must say, I did write down all the cases you provided, and I did my best between then and now to look at them. And so Mr. Bonello is giving you a summary of what the authority would do if we had a hearing. But really, jurisdiction is a very surgical kind of analysis. It doesn't really involve hearing the summary of what might be offered in a site plan application. So let me keep it surgical, and I'll address Mr. Higgins' conclusions in relationship to Mr. Bonello's. When we had the discussions this afternoon, we agreed that approximately 10 years ago, Mr. Bonello and I discussed an application. It may have been for the construction of some pumping stations, and for whatever reason,
For the major project of the renovation of the
Sure.
plant, which was ongoing when the issue took place.
Thank you, yes. So, based on that, there was an agreement or concession, whichever way TOSA would like to characterize it, that they did file a site plan application. And that may have been in part because I had brought to TOSA's attention a case called Shoepack, which happened to involve a regional sewage authority I was involved in way back in the 80s. And in that particular case, the court indicated that there was no preclusion by state law under the statutory scheme involving sewage authorities. And therefore that meant that Township in that case was permitted to have an ordinance which in essence required a site plan. So that is very similar, if it, not exactly on point, to what our ordinance says. You heard Mr. Higgins talk about this type of request falls right in line with what we have always required for site plan review. Now, Mr. Bonello correctly talks about the MLUL and capital review, but Shoepack indicated that it didn't require municipalities to have site plan. So in situations where there's no requirement, then certainly a sewage authority would have to come before capital review. And a capital review, by its nature, is advisory only. Now, the fundamental difference between a capital review and a site plan is notice. So in this particular case, we have two proposed changes, if you will, in pumping stations, and I don't know if they're both in residential areas or just one of them, but certainly one I know is in the midst of residences. So the question fundamentally is, did the ordinance intend that in a situation like this, that the public should be given notice because they might have a concern? And then Mr. Bonello correctly points out that if we were going to consider a use variance, for example, well, that wouldn't be germane. In this particular application, I understand there's just one bulk variance, and that deals with the fence, but that wouldn't be the answer as to whether or not the ordinance required. You heard Mr. Higgins say, well, it's required for site plan purposes alone, and that whether or not you want to call it aesthetics or any one of a litany of issues that we would normally look at for site plan review. And Mr. Higgins is of the opinion that it's required under the MLUL and our ordinance. So now I would need to address Mr. Bonello's legal argument that Shoepack is distinguished from the facts here, or maybe has been overruled. There is, in fact, a case that Mr. Bonello pointed out. It's a 2014 appellate division case, and it does refer to Shoepack. Now, in my opinion, it doesn't overrule Shoepack. It distinguishes it based on the type of application. Excuse me. In that 2014 case, it's called United Water New Jersey versus Borough of Hillsdale. That did not involve review of anything dealing with a sewage authority. It was review under the New Jersey Safe Dam Act, and it involved the construction of a dam in that particular municipality. And the appellate division very carefully looked at the statutory scheme dealing with construction and oversight of dams in New Jersey, and came to the conclusion that based on standards under case law and statute dealing with statutory preclusion, that the statute was comprehensive enough, including dealing with site plan issues, that the local municipality was precluded from looking at the site plan related issues. So the question is this 2014 case on point or not? And my conclusion, and I must say, from a factual point of view, you might have empathy for TOSA for all the reasons that Mr. Bonella says, but that I can't give you an analysis based on that. I can only give you analysis based on, the case law and the statute and Mr. Higgins' analysis. And I don't see a distinction between the applicability of SHUPAC 10 years ago compared to now, because the case in SHUPAC very particularly analyzed that statutory scheme and said that Howell Township, just like Ocean Township, has the right to require site plan review. Now, to try to be above board and more than fair to TOSA and their great counsel, I did try to find if there are any other cases that might support the argument either way. And so I did what we lawyers call shepherdize, and I looked at every case that has ever been cited of SHUPAC, and also this 2014 case. And I did not find anything that, unfortunately or not, would change the opinion that SHUPAC still applies. There was a case that dealt with another statutory scheme where the appellate division said that DEP standards dealing with a different kind of statute was comprehensive. However, the one I found that was closest in terms of applicability is a case that also involves another utility. It's Ocean County Utility Authority versus Berkeley, and it was way back in the 1980s, but it did refer to SHUPAC, and the conclusion was that SHUPAC was still good law. And let me just be comprehensive to see if there's anything else I could find to help. In terms of the references by Mr. Bonello of the two particular statutes, I don't disagree with that. Those statutes actually were in place long before the SHUPAC decision. Those are enabling statutes going back to the 50s when the whole act was set up. So there's always a presumption that a court presumes that the statutes that exist at the time of the decision, are applicable. I don't remember SHUPAC, particularly citing it, but they're certainly implied as being on point. There's also a couple other cases, but I'd overly burden the record if I told you. So I tried to look at it from a very neutral point of view, and that's the only conclusion I could reach.
So at this point, I believe we will have to vote.
Yeah, because it is in fact an issue of jurisdiction. Again, Mr. Bonello would like you to consider this as a capital review. And Mr. Higgins, of course, says that you can't have a capital review without at least having a site plan, and you really shouldn't have a capital review either because they are subsumed. If you didn't have a site plan ordinance, then a capital review would be on point. Is that fair to say?
I would say so, yes.
So it's one or the other. Either if you say it's a capital review, then you hear the testimony tonight. If you discern that it has to be a site plan application, then unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your perspective, there would have to be a site plan application. And then in normal course, our professionals would have an opportunity to look at whatever would be reviewed and give you their opinion, and that's the way we would normally.
So we should have a vote asking each individual member what their choice would be?
Yeah.
Is that how you want to proceed?
Yeah. And
That
I'm
would
not
be
saying you should necessarily listen to what I'm saying.
No, I understand. I understand.
I really wanted Mr. Bonillo to have the opportunity because, you know, TOSA is a, you know.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Who had mentioned that it had been previously approved by another agency to have this capital improvement?
The
if you
Department
will?
of Environmental Protection in Trenton has approved every aspect of this pump station.
Would that override or?
Yeah, because, I mean, 10 years ago, I would presume, you know, being a sewage authority attorney, that DEP would have looked at the nuts and bolts issues dealing with structure and mechanics. They wouldn't necessarily look at what Mr. Bonello was saying, aesthetics, which deals with site plan issues. And as an aside, in capital review applications, they are supposed to take place before any approval is made by a state agency. So I haven't seen any documentation as to how they got capital review approval, because you're not supposed to get it without a
In all fairness,
proceeding.
I'm not sure that's correct. The application before DEP is at the inception, when they draw the plans and the mechanics and everything else. It's only after they approve it that you have any plans that are buildable. It's far more complicated than that.
Well, having dealt with capital review applications for 40 years, all I'll say is that, in my experience, you submit plans to the state that has the jurisdiction. The statute says a capital review is to give advice to that state agency, you know, on issues like this. Again, if there's no ordinance that requires a site plan.
Yeah.
And then that state agency, at least my limited experience, I'll say, then looks at the recommendations and decides whether or not to require the local authority to include those recommendations or not. So,
Can I ask a question?
maybe there's a distinction in Mr. Bonello's experience, but that's just what I interpret 31 under the MLUL to mean.
I just wanted a general question. So, the attorney, counsel said that 95% of the work is limited to this 20 by 20 kind of space, right? This confined space.
Strictly on the existing site plan.
Is that something that you feel comfortable with, or is that not, or is that what?
Well, it's not a matter of feeling comfortable, it's a matter of looking at what the ordinance says and what they're doing. And what they're doing is clearly a development that requires a development application, which is a site plan. And because they're putting a larger building of sorts on the site, they're putting in a new fence around the site. Those are things that we always look at in terms of a site plan, and the fact that particularly the one is right in the middle of a residential area and is very visible.
Mhm. Okay.
Over the years, have we ever, has this ever been brought to the board?
There have been, to my knowledge, at least 2 pump stations that were before the board.
And did they
One
have
is
to?
the one on Green Grove, as a site plan, Green Grove by the Wayside School in the park, and the other is the one in Colonial Terrace. There may have been others that I just don't remember.
But they did require a site plan?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
That's it.
I'd like to add something. Mr. Brown, I think, properly said that in the site plan process, the experts and everybody will look at the issues that are raised by this application. And I just ask you, what variables are there before you that would result in a requirement of any changes? We can't change anything concerning the mechanics or the electrical. That has been approved by DEP, and that, quite frankly, exhausts the review. What the cases indicate is that what's left here and what the intent is, that you should look at the aesthetics. The aesthetics is the only thing that we have a variable on. The actual mechanical, the actual electrical, The small building that's on the property really can't be changed. It's been approved, it's ready to go. But there are aesthetics here that should be reviewed, and we're willing to go into that process because that's really the only thing you can look at.
So there's
Mr.
no.
Bennett,
Go ahead. I'm sorry. One.
Mr. Bennett, let me just ask you a question. If you're conceding that there are certain things that need to be reviewed or that are within our purview, if we don't have a plan in front of us, even a minor site plan, how can we review it if there's no hard copy of a plan?
We sent 9 copies over about 3 weeks ago.
Well, with I meant an application plan.
There,
To-
There's no application for
there are
capital.
plans, the ones that were filed for the building permit. And last Tuesday, we received 9 copies of that same plan. But it's not what you would traditionally get in terms of a site plan.
Thank you. We're looking for a, planning board review of a site plan. If it's a minor site plan, it's a minor site plan. But if we don't have if we as a board and our professionals don't have a plan to review, what are we approving?
Well,
I think just,
one thing I have to say to you is I don't think you have the authority to deny site plan approval. You cannot reject this application.
I don't think so either. From what you're saying, I
What
think.
we're trying to do is be cooperative, and we did bring some renderings showing you what it's gonna look like. And we're willing to cooperate with you, and I think the capital review process is very good because it enables communications informally to make sure that you get what you really want and what we can give you.
But without notice for a site plan, I mean, there may be neighbors that have concerns, legitimate concerns, that you're not aware of, we're not aware of. They should have an opportunity to review it, because like the one pumping station, it's been 50 years since it's been reviewed, and it's going to be probably another 50 before it is. So anything that we're approving or doing now is going to be there long term, and then we'll be blamed for something. Why did you allow that to happen? When we believe that you're supposed to notify the neighbors, and we need a plan that can be reviewed by our professionals. And I would agree with you that I don't know whether this is specifically inherently beneficial, but I don't think there's any question about the ability for the fact that you might need a use variance. I don't think so either.
No, there's no use variance involved at all.
Right.
There's
But
no,
Mr. Higgins
there's,
can
there's no
distinguish.
bulk variance, there's no use variance.
Okay, but we still need something concrete to review. I think it's just being fair to the neighbors, if nothing else. If you want to even get into the statutory requirements, which we could probably debate for another hour and really not resolve it. But I just think basic fairness to the neighbors, and especially the fact that other applications that you've submitted have been an actual application with notice, et cetera. So I'm not sure what you're distinguishing this particular one based upon
But
prior
we
history.
didn't agree the last time, but we came here because this was the easiest and fastest way to get through the project. And that was a major project on the site of the treatment plant.
But how about other pumping stations
I'm
that
not
you've
sure of
had?
that. I have no knowledge of that.
Okay, well, Mr. Higgins' recollection is that the authority has been before us with at least 2 other pumping stations.
That's my
So,
recollection.
I mean,
I mean,
definitely
you've set your own
recall-
precedent, even if you
I don't know
don't
if
agree
that's
with
the
it now.
case. If he says it might have been a new pumping station that was put in, I don't know. But all I'm saying to you is, we have an opportunity to work together. You can.
And we will. We're always working together, but there's certain requirements that I think we'd be remiss if we didn't require
What requirements are they?
notifying notice to the neighbors.
Excuse me, Warren, could we have Mr. Higgins?
I agree with Mr. Bonello that the primary concern here is aesthetics, which is why I have a concern. I think the people most impacted by those aesthetics should be able to have a look at the plan and have some input at a hearing. And those are the people, the immediate neighbors surrounding the site.
Can I ask you one simple question? If they want aesthetics that the board, the authority does not want to give them, are you going to stop the project? Do you have authority to stop that project? You don't?
At
You have
least-
absolutely
no,
no
that's not the-
authority whatsoever to stop the project.
That's not the point. The point is they may have some very constructive, good suggestions that the authority would agree with, or that the board would agree with.
Under
The
the
board can
capital
always put
review,
conditions on an application.
on capital review, there's no need
This-
for.
This isn't, I'm not
notice.
talking about capital review.
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying site plan is the more appropriate way to go.
Yeah,
Or
Mr.
to-
I think
Vanella,
it's just, I think it's just a waste of time, to be honest.
It would-
At this
Mr.
point,
Vanelli,
excuse me, at this point, I think we should proceed to vote on the subject.
What's the motion?
Is there a motion, please, for voting?
Motion that a site plan is required.
Second.
Is that sufficient, Sandy?
yes, and you've
Site
been
plan
concerned also
application.
whether, if you're gonna require a site plan, is that in conjunction with not hearing a capital review application tonight?
Except
Um,
what he said.
sure, what he said.
I'll second that.
What he said too.
No, it's,
Yeah, it sounds like one vote. One vote.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Dr. Benedetto?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Good?
Yes.
Ms. Close?
Yes.
Mr. Levy?
Yes.
Mr. Merrill?
Yes.
Mr. Weinstein?
Yes.
And Chairman Bailey?
yes. Okay, then, that's our ruling. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
It was a very different one. You have to give the people.
Especially in this town. I just don't like them under the gun shit.
That's true. That's true.
Okay, Ms. Krimko, next case, case number 2, Seaview Acquisition LLC, Block 141, lots 1, I believe through 23, 2301 Route 66 Ocean, Zone C4.
Mr. Chairman, I need to disqualify myself from this application.
Okay.
So for the record, Mr. Levy is leaving the dais, sitting in the audience.
In the back row.
Yeah, oh, in the back row, saying nothing.
Jim, would you like to read your report or synopsisize
I'll
it?
summarize it.
Mark
The
it,
thrust
please.
of the application is that the applicant wants.
Oh, you gotta mark the packet first, I'm sorry.
I'm gonna mark the packet as B1 with
Thank you.
today's date. It includes the board planner's report, engineer's report, and a report from the Deal Lake Commission.
Okay, Jim?
The thrust of the application is that the applicant received approval to construct numerous site improvements on the site, as well as taking down the Value City Furniture Store, putting up a new building that, depending upon terminologies, either 3 separate attached buildings or 1 building with 3 separate stores in it. And the request is to now phase that project. It didn't have phasing before. The phasing would be phase 1 would be the construction of the home goods store and all site improvements. The home goods store is done, most of the site improvements are done, not all of them, I don't think, at this point in time. The second would be the construction of the Sierra Trading Post store, that's done. The third would be the stabilization of the future building expansion grass area with grass and also some landscaping. That is partially done at this point. I went to the site the other day and they've got sod around the outside, around the perimeter of that, and put some trees in also. So that's pretty well underway. And then phase 4 would be sometime in the future, the construction of the remaining portion of the building, or the remaining building, depending upon how you want to phrase that and what the terminology is. The application requires no new variances. It requires it appears to require one waiver for sodding. They want to, part of the area they're stabilizing, they want to put seed in rather than sod. I have no problem with that. I went and looked at it, and it appears they've got sprinkler systems throughout that entire area already set up. So I don't think seed would be a problem. And then again, the perimeter closest to the parking area where you would view the site is sod. So I don't have a problem there. have several comments. There were several field changes that were made in the landscaping, minor changes, and I'm suggesting that the plans be revised to show that specifically, so that in the future, if I'm not here, which apparently I won't be beginning of next year, that whoever is following up on reviewing this and inspecting it would know exactly what's supposed to be there. The second is that there were some existing trees along the ring road that were to be put in along the ring road with the original approval, and because of existing trees on the ring road, the decision was made to relocate those trees to somewhere else on the site, which we decided would be very nice along this new side wall of the building to help break it up. That's actually been done, but the plan should reflect that so that there's a record of that. And then all conditions of the prior approval should also be included in any approval.
Okay, very good. Mr. Fitzgerald?
Yes, sir. I have a report dated August 13th. Rather than be redundant, I'll just cut to the quick and kind of summarize. I think the idea of phasing is a really good idea in terms of both the developer and the township officials for managing the project and releasing COs as certain improvements for a larger scale development like this, as portions of the building are ready, provided they're supported by site improvements. I'm just going to read this paragraph because I wrote it as succinctly as I could on page 2. In general, I have no substantive engineering concern with applicant's phasing proposal, other than to note that previously approved building and site improvements for the Phase 4 area of the project are not depicted upon the plans. Inasmuch as multiple site plan approvals cannot exist simultaneously, the applicant must clarify its intent with regard to Phase 4. If its intent is to abandon previously approved improvements and return to the board as such time as new development is proposed, the current plan is adequate. If applicant's intent is to preserve approval of previously approved development within the Phase 4 area, the board's resolution should specifically state this. Conditions of approval shall require 1, clear delineation of the Phase 4 area upon the site plan, 2, the addition of acceptable Phase 4 site plan, approximately 9 sheets, to the current site plan drawings. Because we need a Phase 4 official site plan if that's what they're preserving.
Of course. Jennifer?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Jennifer Krimko on behalf of the applicant. And I think that Bill and Jim said it best. Basically, we're just seeking to phase it so we can construct the third tenant building, which was proposed to be an Aldi at a later date. We are not abandoning the ability to construct that. We would comply with Mr. Fitzgerald's request that we append the Phase 4 plans to the overall site plan set. We also don't object to amending the plans pursuant to Mr. Higgins to show what's built today. So I can move the plans into evidence. I have the engineer and the architect here to testify if you have questions for them. I don't know that they have anything to add above and beyond what was already stated by your professionals. So
That would be fine. You could just move that into evidence.
Yep, so A1, I have the preliminary and final major site plan prepared by Mazer Consulting, and that's revised through 7/26/17.
I'm gonna mark that as A1 with today's date.
And then A2 are the architectural plans showing the elevation in question, prepared by Robert W. Adler Architects, and that is revised through June 27th, 2017.
That would be A2.
Okay, thank you. That's all you have, right?
Yeah, unless the board members have any specific questions, either for me procedurally or the professionals that are here. Mr. Chair.
Procedural question.
Yes, sir.
So everything that was outlined on the original approval now needs to be completed by when? The end of Phase 4 or?
No.
Okay,
Everything is going to be done. The only thing that's not going to, everything is going to be done.
Okay.
The only thing that's not going to be done is the construction of the building.
No, it's not exactly. You're going to have some sidewalks and some utility connections and some support.
Yes, as part of the building.
As part of, well, yeah, but they're outside the building, and that's why I'm suggesting that the Phase 4 area be shown on sheet 4 of this plan, the current plan, and then those specific drawings that deal with what needs to be done be labeled as Phase 4 and appended to the end of it, so that it preserves the approval and anyone can look at it any time and see exactly when.
But all of the landscaping and other things that you wanted for the overall site are all done.
Thank you.
So do you rest, Ms. Krimko?
I do, subject of course to the ability to comment after Mr. Brockle gets up to speak, should he decide to get up to speak.
We're going to open for public comments. Mr. Brockle?
Pardon my attire, I was taking a stand at the Italian Fest, so I was a little bit muddy.
Don't butter up to the board.
Very good. She knows what we're on. Did you buy some corn? Anyway. So Don Brockle, DLA Commission, Ocean Township's representative.
We have to swear you in, Mr. Brockle.
No problem.
Raise your right hand, please, Mr. Brockle. Would you stand? Promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God. Thank you. Be seated.
Okay, it's always a great opportunity to talk to the board and also talk to my friends at Seaview because, as we all know, Seaview is critical to the lake, and the lake's taken a hit over 50 years because of past ills, and the current owner is trying his best. And I want to thank the current owner for doing his best in cleaning out the storm scepters that, within weeks after the last meeting when I came, I saw driving around, going to Costco, of course, and I saw the pump truck stop, talk to the gentleman. And they were cleaning out the storm scepters that are there currently. Not the best ones in the world, but they are there and they're working. So that was great to see. And we're always wanting to slow down the velocity of the water coming from Seaview. And so we really like to take the opportunity to ask and to have the owners of Seaview properties to look at possible ways that we can do that. Ocean Township is, and with the cooperation of the DLA Commission, has taken some steps and some planning and had detailed planning done to come up with a couple ways to do that between the PetSmart building and the old Acme building. And we'd like the opportunity to sit down with the owners and discuss
I
that.
can certainly say, as long as it's unrelated to this
Abs-
amendment for phasing that we're here before you tonight, I'm certain that the
Yep.
Mastry Brothers would be happy to sit down and speak with you.
That'd be wonderful. And I just want to make Seaview as good as the Wegmans property because we really have no effects from the Wegmans property to Deal Lake, even though it's a direct flow.
You gotta get this built and start collecting
Sure.
rent, and then we
Right.
can talk.
Now we get somebody to work.
Correct.
That's very good. But that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brockle. Any other public comments on this? And that concludes the public comments section. And yes, motion for resolution?
Yes.
We can
Before
close.
you close, can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
And the intention is to have the first two buildings occupied by when?
I believe September,
When can we get the,
September, October.
Do you want that in the
That's
resolution?
important, and that's why I'm asking, because the next meeting, we are very early,
When is the next meeting?
the end of September, September 25th. So this wouldn't get memorialized until the end of September. So you're talking, by the time you publish, that it would be into October. So I want to make it
Is that a concern?
clear how it's going to work.
No, because I believe that we can obtain a temporary CO even without this, based on our technical review meeting that we had with the board engineer.
I believe that was the collective,
I wasn't there, so.
no, I know,
don't
I know, I
I don't know
know.
that anybody from construction.
Yeah, Ron was there.
Ron was there, and we were talking about that,
And
and my
Mike
rec-
Lesh.
I can't guarantee, but my recollection, and it seems to be consistent with Ron's, or with Ron's opinion, and what Greg decided, offered, was that it could be done. A temporary CO could be done, providing certain things were met.
But I think that needs to be clear in the minutes and on the record here, so that it's clear next month.
Well, that's my recollection. It was that it could be done as long as all the statutory requirements of the building code were met. Ron was okay. If there's not something out there outstanding, this board and no one else can waive that.
I don't care at all.
Right. No, I know. I didn't mean to charge you up.
Next week. But I know that there's going to get to be a question. As a matter of fact, this was first raised last March, and at the time, everything outside was going to be finished, and it would just be a tenant fit out. So that's why I think, as part of the whatever you offer it on the record, that has to be clear what the intent is. Otherwise, we're going to have a problem.
Okay.
Just because, are you suggesting any language be inserted in the resolution in terms of timeliness?
Not me, because I wasn't at that technical review meeting.
Okay.
And somebody needs to address that.
Yeah, so unless someone says to the contrary, I would not insert that factor in the resolution, but it certainly would be part of the record.
Yes.
Okay.
We're not opening to the public until October. I think the TCO was not for the purpose of opening the store, but for allowing the tenants to get in and do their tenant fit out.
Okay.
So I think we're okay as far as no final CO, as long as the temporary CO can be put into place so they can get in there and start putting in shelves.
Yeah, that's
Again,
helpful to state on the record.
And I think that should be part of this record, so
Okay.
it's clear.
Okay. Very good then.
That's a stipulation, a representation of the
Yes,
applicant?
yes, and I would just beg every member of the board to come to the meeting at the end of September, so there's no canceling of the meeting due to a lack of a quorum, because that would be painful.
All right.
I don't think this board has ever lacked a
I think you're
quorum.
right.
Right.
I think you're right.
Precedence.
Okay, very good then. And
As suggested.
Talk to Rachel.
Second.
we got to close the public hearing first, though.
Yes.
Okay, that's closed. Now,
Make a resolution or a motion. What we gotta vote on?
Do you want the same motion?
Yes.
fine.
Yes.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Dr. Benedetto?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Good?
Yes.
Ms. Close?
Yes.
Mr. Piano?
Yes.
Yes.
And Chairman Rudd?
Yes. Okay. It's approved.
No, that was to close the public.
All
Now
right,
you can.
close the public now. Okay.
Make a motion.
I'll second it.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Dr. Benedetto?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Good?
Yes.
Ms. Close? Mr. Piano?
Yes.
Mr. Weinstein?
Yes.
Chairman Farley?
Yes.
Thank you very much. May I state for the record that I begged Marianne not to leave, but she ignored my pleas and requests, and she's
Doing a lot of
going.
other people.
And she's going anyway. So good luck.
You just sworn in for another 3 years, didn't you know that?
Changed her mind.
It's 3 weeks, but it's really 3 years. She didn't read the fine print.
Thanks, Pete. I know, yeah.
You can come up, Pete.
Now we're going to take a 5-minute break, if we could, please. We are ready to proceed.
Okay.
Mr. Falvo, this is a carried case, number 3, Growing Kids Academy LLC, Block 34, Lot 11, 1610 Highway 35, Ocean, New Jersey, Zone C2. Mr. Falvo.
Do you want to have
Mark the
Mr.
pa- let's
Higgins
mark the
read
packet.
his report?
Let's mark the packet first.
Marked as B1 with today's date.
Okay, I'll
Mr.
summarize.
Mr. Higgins.
This is an application, the use is a conditional use in the zone. There are 3 conditions, which is it has to be licensed by the state, and apparently it is licensed by the state. The second is that it has to have an accessible outdoor play area, which is demonstrated to be safe and adequate, and quite frankly, if they're getting the state license, they do have an adequate outdoor play area. They're putting a small play area in the front of the building and a little court in the front of the building, which I have no problem at all with that. It's a very minor change to the site plan. And then the final condition is that they have to have a conveniently located area which shall be for the purpose of allowing parents and guardians to park their car while escorting the child into the daycare facility. The parking lot's about 150 feet from the front door, and I think you have to make a decision whether that's convenient. I don't have a major problem with it. When the ordinance was constructed, the concern there is that there were very few childcare centers in the area. And people, if you didn't have something that was convenient, people might be compelled to think, even so it's inconvenient for them, that they'd have to do it because they didn't have a choice. Now there are so many childcare centers around that if somebody doesn't like where these parking spaces are situated and feels they're inconvenient, they can go to another childcare center. So I don't think that's a major, I think the convenience issue would really be subject to the opinion of the person that's using the facility. So, but basically that's it.
Okay, and Bill?
Hey, Mr. Chairman, I have a report dated July 23rd. We'll cut to the quick. This center's been there a long time, not the applicant's issue, but the maintenance on the center has generally been really poor, particularly the back. It's basically a disgrace. Having said that, you'll understand why I made some comments. I have little engineering concern regarding the matter as long as the following are addressed to the satisfaction of the board. Drop-off pickup. This is going to what Jim was saying. It may make sense to restrict via signage 4 or 5 of the parking stalls in the closest 7-stall group as 10-minute parking during the peak drop-off pickup hours. Because that group is also right next to a convenient crosswalk, and so it could be easily taken care of by some signage. The center is not that busy when the child care facility is going to receive most of its drop-off pickups anyway. A pedestrian crosswalk with attendant signage could be painted, as I said right there, and it would be fine. 3B, maintenance of the play area surface. It may prove difficult to maintain a high-quality grass surface in the fence-limited space available. Applicant should consider, it only considers, not saying you have to, a synthetic surface like the one, I hung a pamphlet on here, it's a little bit lengthy, but it's basically, you can fall, you can't get hurt, it lets water through, doesn't have bugs, mud, disease, anything else, so just a thought. And C, no patron access of any kind should be available from the rear, the westerly door of the space. That door should be fitted with emergency panic bar. And that's because the back is so bad that the last thing you want is kids running around, if anyone managed to sneak out back there. And you don't want to encourage your patrons to be using that area back there. It's really bad in terms of unmaintained over many, many years. But that's not the applicant's issue. I just don't think that should be encouraged to be used. Architectural plans had a minor typo on them or something. They called it the wrong blocking lot or something minor. That's it.
Okay, Bill.
Mr. Falvo?
I'd like to mark as evidence as A1 would be the Alta ASCM land title survey prepared by Charles Witters dated May 7, 2001. And the proposed playground area has been shown, and that's prepared by Nelson Engineering, signed by David Besh, dated June 21st, 2017. A2 would be the architectural plans.
Just one thing, let me start with the survey. So the survey is A1, and for the record, it's a photocopy, it's not
Right.
sealed. I just want to make sure that it's clear for the record.
Yeah. But Mr. Besh's plans are sealed.
I understand.
Okay. A2 are the architectural plans. Proposed changes of use to existing tenant space consisting of 2 sheets, S1-0 dated May 16, 2017, which is also a site plan, and P1-0 dated June 8, 2017, which just shows the interior fit-outs. Would you like to swear Ms. British, please?
Would you stand, raise your right hand? You promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Would you please state your name for the record, please?
Simone Brimage?
Simone, you are the owner of Grown Kids,
Yes.
and for how long have you operated that daycare center?
2007?
And prior to 2007, did you work in the daycare center that was located there?
Yes.
And how long has the daycare center been located? This, by the way, is where Dean's Food Stores, it's located there. How long has the daycare center been located at that location?
There was a center there 10 years prior to me being there.
Okay. And you're presently licensed by the state of New Jersey?
Yes, I am.
And your proposed new location will also be licensed by the state of New Jersey?
Yes.
Now, with regard to the plans that were introduced into evidence with regard to the play area, we had originally shown the plans with a white, solid white vinyl fence, is that correct?
Correct.
And the landlord will not permit that.
Correct.
Okay, so we decided we're going to put, the landlord wants either aluminum or cast iron type picket fence, is that correct?
Correct.
I'm going to show you a style of fencing that was, has different names, and ask you if this fencing, which is called Saybrook The other one's called Horizon. Are they typical of the type of fence you might put there?
Yes.
Ms. Falvo, why don't we have that marked?
I'm gonna mark that as A3, and I have a bunch of copies.
Would it be A4?
No.
A3.
Did we mark, I was playing catch up, did we mark the BESH plans and the architect's plans?
Yes.
Yes, A2 is the
A2 is the
architectural
architectural.
plans, A1,
Was,
survey with the BESH plan attached.
Yeah.
oh, they're not attached, so that's why I wrote.
Yeah, they're on top of each other. And A3 is the fence.
They're not attached with the ones that were submitted at all, so that's.
Can we have that marked in the evidence?
Yes, is A3, please?
Thank you. You know.
If I could, Bill, which where do you want the 4 spaces reserved? Because the landlord has agreed to it.
We'll let Simone make the real call, but my thought was, you're gonna be walking in here,
Right.
so I thought you could take this.
Okay,
Either this one or this one seemed like these are 7 spaces. If you just reserve these with signs that say 10-minute parking, paint a crosswalk across here, it's good to
that's,
go.
we're
Okay.
good to do that. Okay. This one okay?
Sure, that's fine.
Now, with regard to the play area itself, you originally proposed grass, and the landlord did not want grass because he said it's gonna be too hard to maintain. So you're gonna put a mulch type material in there?
Correct.
And is that similar to what you have at your existing
Yes, it
playground?
is.
Okay.
Is it real mulch or synthetic mulch you're gonna use?
I have a playground mulch, so I have a.
But I mean, is it real bark or is it the synthetic?
It's real bark,
Okay.
but it's certified playground mulch.
Yep, okay, that's fine. That's permitted by the state, right under the
Yes.
specifically.
Now, and with regard to the rear door, is it my understanding that you're gonna use that only for your employees to come through?
Yes, and I would also like to state that there are 2 sets of doors. So there's a combination lock, so no one can just walk in either way.
You're gonna have parking in the back?
Well, I would prefer my,
Okay.
I know what you're saying, but one thing is, it doesn't need to be cleaned up, which I wanna take care of because, it's my reputation also. You know what I mean? So I want it cleaned up back there anyway. And also Easter Seals does use that space for their handicapped adults. So there are people back there.
I know.
But there is a second set of doors, there's camera systems, so as far as security purposes, then everything will be fine.
So with regard to your interior operation, between the front door and the back door, you have cameras on both doors?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
And there's a method by which, if somebody's coming in the back door, they have to have a code to get in?
Correct.
And if somebody's coming in the front door, do they need a code to get in, or?
Yes, there's 2 sets. You can enter, but then you have to get actually inside. There's gonna be a vestibule, so to
Right.
get inside the actual building, you have to use the combination.
Okay, and then when the parents are dropped off, they are greeted by someone, one of your staff members?
Well, they have to have the code.
To
And they
get
have to,
in.
correct, to get in.
But when you get into the vestibule, the child is then taken to his,
Taken to their classroom, they have to sign the child in to their sign-in sheet, so you know who brought the child and what time they came.
and the same when they leave?
Correct.
And as far as putting 4 spaces where Mr. Fitzgerald has indicated, together with a marked crosswalk, that's no problem as far as you or the landlord is concerned.
Correct, that's not a problem.
So this would be your conveniently located parking, you would have the play area, you would have the area of the actual school, all of which would be approved by the state.
Correct.
I have no further questions.
I just have one question. Going back to that back door, can they, you said there's 2 sets of doors before they could go out the back too as well?
Yes, there's an entry door, and then in order to get inside the actual building, it's a vestibule.
Yeah.
So to get inside the actual, daycare center, you have to have the combination.
What about the back door?
That's what I'm referring to.
Oh, okay, there's a
Both are
vestibule.
gonna
Oh,
have,
okay.
yes,
I
both
gotcha.
have vestibules.
Okay.
And there's a security, with camera security
Mhm.
system.
Can I ask the question? I can't see the plan. So on the front side,
I
where
have extra sets of.
I would
Oh,
love
boy.
one.
the best. Don't leave. So in the front section, you're walking in, you get to the vestibule.
Yes.
And who's in the vestibule?
There's a combination lock door
Correct,
there
but who's
to get
in the,
inside.
so if I was, I don't know that I do this, but if I was bringing my kids and I was notorious or something, and I shared that combination with somebody who was not looking to do good, if they got into the vestibule, what's in the vestibule? What could somebody get to without getting through the second door?
Nothing.
Nothing.
No.
And they don't have the combination for the second door.
Correct.
for the employees.
Yes.
Any other questions?
Yes, I have a couple of questions.
Right ahead, Sandy.
Yeah, I'll direct this to Mr. Falvo and see if he feels that our witness should testify. In reference to Jim's report, he was talking about what the licensure process includes. And one of the questions was whether or not access was particularly reviewed by the state for this particular site.
The state has their requirements. They come in and they do the preliminary inspection, and then after you get your COs, and they do.
Right, so have they done that yet? And is there a writing that particularly
No,
indicates?
everything's fine. I've given them everything they requested. They're just waiting for the last thing. So they.
All right, but you don't have an actual approval yet from, is it
I can't-
DIFUS?
No, it's children licensing of the state of New Jersey.
Is that under the DCA or DIFUS?
No, it's not. DIFUS is for.
Must be DCA then, okay. All right. So, in reference to Mr. Higgins' report, he wants either proof, the particularity, which you may have provided, or a confirmation that the state licensing process
Yeah.
has.
Does the licensing process look at where the parking spaces are?
No,
No,
they
it doesn't.
don't-
Okay,
that's not
so-
anything to do
So I
with them.
think,
They
so
don't-
that what we're looking at is really basically what Bill suggested, that they show the most convenient spaces and that
Okay.
they're adequate. Okay.
So if the board were to grant this, we'd look at Jim's alternate provision that the board would determine based on your testimony whether or not there's a conveniently located area.
Yeah.
That would be one.
Under the municipal land use law, the criteria you have is not applicable. Under 4055D 66.1, daycare centers are permitted uses in all non-residential areas.
Sure. But you want to address that, Jim, as to why you put that in your report and how it would relate to a resolution?
Well, that's because in this ordinance, it is a conditionally permitted use. I don't think the land use law is really clear whether you can differentiate between a principal permitted use and a conditionally permitted use. But the point is, when the ordinance was developed, as I said earlier, I think the situation was much different than it is now. I have no problem with this application as it's presented, particularly with designating those parking spaces that are closest to the front door. I think that's convenient.
And also in terms of the resolution, if it's granted tonight, each daycare center would be licensed. I'm looking at your report again,
Yes.
Jim. You indicated it would be licensed either by DIFUS or another organization with which the division contracts for family daycare or child center care.
Yeah, I think they meet that condition.
Okay,
Okay.
you can't open with that.
Yeah.
The main thrust there is that it be licensed by the state, by whatever agency.
Right.
in the
Correct,
state.
yes.
And whether or not it's DIFUS or DCA.
Yes, it doesn't matter, yes.
So we could just make the resolution a little generic. I think it is DCA rather than DIFUS.
It's the Department of Human Services that actually issues the license.
Okay.
DHS.
Hmm?
DHS.
Yeah. Okay, we could clarify that then. Department of. Well, I think DCA is under that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I think those are all the questions I had.
And the plan, you can revise the plan to show the crosswalk and the signs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That way we can
revised
enforce
plan
that on the
will show
landlord.
Crosswalk, and we'll show the 4 parking spaces with the signage, which will permit 10-minute parking during the AM hours when they drop.
AM, PM.
PM hours when they take off.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I have sufficient information if the board is inclined to grant a resolution. I see there's one individual in the audience. Mr. Falvo, you have any other testimony tonight? Do you,
I have no other testimony.
you close then?
Yes.
Okay, then, public comments? Come on up.
He's not saying anything.
All right, then there's nobody
And
in
we
the
will
audience.
close that portion of the meeting as well. No public comments. We can close that, and
Can move to close the hearing.
we move to close the hearing.
Make a motion to close the hearing?
Second.
Yes.
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 Now, Mr. Chairman, the reason why I was asking the particular questions is that, if you might remember, this was on the agenda last time. There was an issue with notice. I had agreed to prepare in advance because of the nature of the application. I understand the emergency nature of the move with children. A prospective resolution, so we could bypass the standard resolution memorialization if the board is inclined to do so. So if the board is so inclined, I can tell you what the resolution would say.
Go ahead.
All right. So I have given Mr. Falvo a copy of this in advance. I have discussed this with Mr. Higgins and Ms. Walensky. I have looked at Mr. Fitzgerald's report. So everything that was testified to tonight is incorporated already in the resolution, and obviously is in the usual format, which Mr. Falvo is very aware of over the years. So the customized provisions of the resolution relate to the following. We will highlight that each child care center is licensed under the Department of Human Services under DCA. There was testimony tonight to confirm that this particular center is licensed or shall be licensed at the time that there's a move-in or transfer from the present location. The applicant has suggested that in lieu of what was initially recommended in Mr. Higgins' report, that they would like to have the board have a picket fence permitted, which would be either a Saybrook or Horizon picket fence or approved equal, and that's what the resolution states. There's details about what was just testified to about access and the intentions of safe recreation. We heard testimony tonight with regards to location and access. I asked the question to confirm that really what's been approved doesn't include a review by DCA of the particular access. But we did hear testimony tonight that's satisfactory to Mr. Higgins that the location is conveniently located. And I do refer to the various entities in Mr. Higgins' report which have sprung up, if you will, in the township since the ordinance was introduced. So we have a lot of empirical evidence which helps us understand conveniently located. I go through the standard conditional use and site plan standards. In the conditions, the resolution would read that the applicant shall comply with all suggestions in the board engineer's report that you heard tonight, with the 2 exceptions. And one dealt with the testimony tonight about installation of natural mulch or similar material instead of grass and in compliance with state mandates. We do know that the state controls that. Also, with regards to point 3.c, the rear door shall be used only as a staff entrance, and there's a reference to the fact that they will be parking in the rear parking area. The rest of the conditions are standard. I ask our professionals if there's anything else that they feel should be added.
I think that the only thing that I would want to not limit her if she's there 20 years or something to a mulch. I mean, there's nothing wrong with mulch. It's fine. It's approved by the state. But the surfacing for the play area should be approved by the state.
Yeah.
Period.
You want to just say that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to limit her because she may change her mind 20 years from now and want to do something different and not have to come back here for that.
Again, if the board is amenable to that, I'll just delete reference to mulch. I'll just say a material that's not grass,
and approved by
and
the
in
state.
compliance with as approved by the state.
Yeah.
As approved by the applicable state agency. Okay.
Works for me.
Excuse me. All right. That would be the resolution, unless anybody on the board wants to add, subtract. something
That's
else.
fine.
I'd like to make a motion to approve them.
I second it.
So who moved it?
I did.
Hello. Ready to go.
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay. Approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good luck, Simone.
Thank you, good luck.
Good luck.
Thank you.
She's moving. You got that? You've already got that she's moving?
Good luck.
You're staying, Mr. Fallow, right? You've got the next one?
Yes.
Hey, don't get up here.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure if we have any DQs or not, but we can start with that issue.
Anybody disqualified from this? The Italian American Club.
I will take note that I am a member of the Italian American Club, but based on council, I don't have to recuse myself, and
That's
this
correct.
looks
You
simple
concur with
enough
that,
that.
Mr. Falvo, I assume?
I have no problem.
I'm also a member of the Italian American Club, and I'd be happy to step down if you need me to.
I am also a member of the Italian American Club, and I'd like to stay as well.
Well, you're precluded, Mr. Falvo.
I am not a member of the Italian American Club.
Oh, you're precluded.
You have to pardon me, my client had to leave because he had to pick up his son because his mother, his wife, was otherwise engaged. So,
Okay, before we start, we're going to start with number 4, Italian American Association of the Township of Ocean, Block 189, Lots 6 and 9, 1110, Highway 35, Ocean, New Jersey, Zone C3. Okay.
Done.
Could we please mark the packet?
Mark the packet as B1 with today's date.
Mr. Higgins, would you like to summarize or read?
No,
the
no, I'll
report?
just summarize. What they're requesting is to put a second sign on the Valley Road side of the Italian American Association. It's going to be 12 square feet in area, have a height of 49 inches. They require variance for the number of freestanding signs because they're permitted to have 1 on each frontage, and they have 2 on this frontage, but none on the other frontage on Lawrence Avenue. So that they're permitted to have 2 signs, but they're not both permitted to be on Valley Road. So it's the number of freestanding signs and the setback. The sign is going to be set back about 5 feet, which is required to be set back 15 feet. And my feeling is, given the size of the sign and the total square footage of the 2 signs, I don't have a major problem with it.
Okay. Bill?
I have a report dated July 23rd, Mr. Chairman. I have no engineering concern with the proposal. As I noted, it's illustrated on the plan, the curvature of Valley Road is such that the sign setback will not encroach upon driveway sight lines.
Okay. Peter?
I'd like to just mark as A1 in evidence, the site plan, amended preliminary and final site plan proposed sign to the IAATO, prepared by Nelson Engineering Associates, dated October 12, 2016, revised March 10th, 2017, to show the site triangle. That plan also shows the sign detail that was referenced by the planner or engineer. And, based on their reports and A2 and evidence, I would respectfully request that the variance to construct the sign saying Falco's Catering be granted.
Why do they need the sign?
I'm sorry?
Why do they need the additional sign?
Because that's where their main operation is, and sometimes people don't find them. They pass by the place because all they see is the Renaissance or the Italian American Association. There's no sign identifying their operation at that location.
Is this Mr. Falvo, is this the only sign that denotes Falco's Catering?
Yes.
On the property?
Makes sense.
You want to count the trucks that are parked
No,
on
no,
North
no.
Avenue, I can watch from my office.
There's no
come on,
sign
stop
on
now.
Lawrence Avenue?
Just the trucks.
Takeout entrance.
Yeah.
Why?
I shouldn't be answering.
No. Yeah.
Mr. Falvo?
it's okay. You can.
You don't
I want you to
require a sign on Lawrence Avenue?
They have not asked for it, so. You want to grant one, we'll put one.
Well, I miss that driveway all the time. I think you need a sign there.
That would be.
How about if we put in a few more additional signs?
Remember that
We
the
really
cameras
should-
are
Then I
rolling.
might have
Yes.
to put in trees.
We should put the sign bigger
No, no.
on 35.
No trees.
Sounds like there's a disagreement within the organization.
If you want an additional sign on Lawrence Avenue,
No.
Yeah, thank you.
You haven't noticed for it.
That's right, you can't do it.
Okay.
Make a motion
Are you all
to
done?
close,
Is there a motion to close the meeting, please?
close,
Hearing. Close.
close the hearing.
Hearing. I'd make a motion to close the hearing. Can I do that?
I'll second it.
Yes, sir, you can do whatever you want.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Trustee Vendetta?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Good?
Yes.
Mr. Close?
Yes.
Mr. Reedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Sienna?
Yes.
Mr. Weinstein?
Yes.
Chairman Miller?
Yes. Motion for a positive resolution.
I second.
No, I'm asking for the motion.
I'll make a motion for a positive resolution.
I second it.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Trustee Benedetto?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Good?
Yes.
Mr. Close?
Yes.
Mr. Reedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Sienna?
Yes.
Mr. Weinstein?
Yes.
And Chairman Miller?
Yes. Are we gonna make a
thank you very
motion?
much.
Now you can hit the
ladies and
gavel.
gentlemen.
Come on.
Do we have to make a
Motion to
motion
adjourn?
close the meeting? Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Just want,
Mary Ann.
before we adjourn, go ahead. I was just gonna say that, just recognize that this is the end of the Walensky era. And, you know, I, for one, have loved working with Mary Ann for 30 years. And gonna miss her.
Thank you.
Me too. And I haven't been working with Mary Ann for 30 years, but I've known her for more than 30 years. And not only is she a fantastic professional, but a wonderful friend and neighbor. And I can't say I'll miss her because I'll see her, but I'll miss her sitting here.
Thank you.
Just tell us when the party is.
So will Mr. Falvo miss her.
So I
I didn't have a chance. I've been with her the full 30 years.
Yep. You were swimming.